Hi guys, welcome to the inaugural Chessbase lessons with Alex, with International Master Alex Astaneh Lopez, one and only. Welcome, Alex.
I appreciate it, Nicola. Happy to be here. Ready to make you suffer a little bit as per usual.
Yes, I think that one of the biggest appeals of this session is people watching me suffer. So anyway, we can call it this suffering session with Nicola. So just a huge shout out to International Master Alex Lopez. He is a former Irish national champion, and he I have been working on my chess for actually I think almost a year now. So he deserves for whatever progress I made or didn't make. He deserves all the most of the credit, and I'm very happy that we have finally decided to do some of these lessons on stream.
I'm not sure how exactly the concept of getting credit for progress not made. I'm not quite sure if I'm on board with that, but
Yeah, there we go. Progress not made. Okay, roasted.
no, those were your words, Nicola. Those were your words.
Okay.
I'm the only one that got roasted there.
No, that's fine. Hi guys, and just a very quick shout outs to my dear friends who have just joined us, to Samith, to Bunkenader. It's very good to see you guys. To Raul Chess 77, to I'm a Shy Guy. Thank you. It's very good to see you guys here, and welcome to this is the inaugural session. We are actually going to use. I'm very excited about this. I'm also excited about the match I have with one and only international master Daniel Rensch in 9 hours at 3 p.m. New York time. The international master Daniel Rensch is going to try to adopt me. The match will be commentated by Grandmaster Robert Hess and WF Maria Emelianova. So we'll see how that goes. That would be adoption match number 20. My score up to this point is 17-2. So we'll see how that's gonna go. But please, if you can join, it promised to be a lot of fun. Danny is a great guy, and I'm very happy that he agreed to do it. I guess he has this Adopt a Danny series in which big grandmasters are trying to adopt him, so he wants to try to do adopting himself. All right, so after that intro, Alex, what kind of torture do you have prepped for me this morning?
Can I just say, by the way, Nicola, I don't know if you caught this, but I was watching the speed chess championships at chess.com and with Danny Rensch and Robert Hess yesterday, and they were talking about this. Like at some point, Danny said like that he's got his match coming up against you,
Oh, you
and
heard
he
that?
said
Good. I didn't hear that. So cool.
right, and he actually commented that he's going to be playing it on the same day. He's going to be playing it on the same day as it's his son's birthday, and
Okay.
uh, and then he like made some kind of comment about family time. During my I like during my family time, I'm there playing Nicola, and I loved Bobby Hess's burn on him. He said that because he loves family so much, he's actually going to try to get his son a new brother after adopting you. So that was the banter exchange there.
Well,
Uh,
for the record, the reason it's happening on Friday is because Danny's wife actually moved the birthday from Friday to Sunday. And the match was supposed to be on its normal time on Sunday. So Danny immediately achieved a huge respect from my wife because he basically listened to his wife, which is Zdravo Mad Max. So it was, anyway, for what that's worth. So Danny has a big fan, and I'll tell him when we start streaming that, my wife is rooting for me for obvious reasons, but she likes the fact that he basically obeyed his wife's wishes. So, hey, Chess Guy. Hey, Daniel Chess Lions. It's very good to see you. A big shout out to Chess Lions. It's very good to see Daniel Devar here, who is not just a mod in this channel, but a streamer himself. Give him a follow. And all right, so after that great introduction and shout outs, let's, I'm actually genuinely curious what we have.
Yeah, so Nicola, we're actually gonna take it relative for this. Let's not depend. What I've taken is some games from.
By the way, Alex, your mic is cutting out a little bit, in and out.
Let me just double check that my microphone is the right one.
No worries. Hey, Chessbase 6, it's good to see you. Now my voice is breaking up because
so let me see. I can put the microphone, but the internet is a little unstable there. I got that, so it could be down to that.
Oh no, you're good. Fine now.
I'm good. Okay.
Hey, Jessica, thank you. Good to see you. I'm starting early with Alex, and then I'm playing a match against Danny in about 9 hours. So promises to be a very interesting day. Yeah, your voice is fine now.
Awesome. So basically, lesson we were looking at sort of and typical mistakes that players in the 1800 to 2000 bracket were making. And a lot of the time, as you know, Nicola, but I don't know how many of the viewers will know, so I'll say it for the lessons. But in the previous lesson, is everything okay? Or?
Hey, Alex, if you're breaking still up a little bit, I think the microphone, if you're using that microphone in front of you,
this one,
yeah, you may be a little bit too far from it.
It's where I usually am. I can place it nearer like this, but I think it could be my internet.
Hey, Lila Koridze, very good to see you. Lila, it's very good to see you. A big shout out to Lila, who is she's a great streamer, a great friend of the channel. She's also one of the strongest ladies on Twitch. And I don't know, topic is a secret. Alex is not divulging, so we'll find out.
The topic is basically just look over, extract typical strategic and around the 100 up to 2000 based on games of mine from Reykjavik Open. I don't know if my voice is still in trouble.
Yeah, Maria Milanova is saying that reducing it's big breaking up, say that reducing the video quality might be in order.
We can also, I don't know, like restart the call or anything like that.
Okay.
Do you want me to just leave the room and come back? But then I would have to stop sharing. It would be a bit of a disaster.
No, but it's very interesting. Let's see how it goes. Hey, Dirkia, it's very good to see you. Are you using Logitech 920 as the camera, Maria?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay. Do you call with Zoom? Yes. Camera itself has a microphone.
It does. You want me to use that instead?
So Maria is saying that maybe we should switch to that mic.
All right. You can do that.
Thank you, Maria. Maria is... I have to say one thing while Alex is switching the camera, that I wouldn't be streaming if it weren't for Maria Milanova and her support for me throughout these months of me streaming has been absolutely essential. She is basically a technical support, not just for me, but quite a lot of streamers. So thank you, Maria. All right. Pro streamer in the house, exactly. All right, so let's see if this video is not breaking up. The educated guess is that microphone on your camera should work better. So
Okay, so
And
people can let me know. Thank you for the suggestion.
okay, your volume is low now. Hold on. I'm gonna try to jack it up. Okay, let's try it again.
Hello, hello, hello. Is my voice breaking?
It's not breaking, it's just a little bit low. Okay, let's...
But I'm getting internet connections unstable as well. Like, sorry guys, I don't know why this is, because I'm not even on wireless.
Actually, when you move forward closer, it's actually good. So if you,
like this.
Yeah, let's do that. Hi guys. Yeah, sorry. Usual technical things. We'll sort them out for the next time. This is an inaugural.
We can't hear anything now. Oh goodness.
Can you hear? You can.
Testing. Can people hear me?
Yeah. All right. Is it better now? Okay. Okay, it's fine. Oh, it's yeah, we're fine. Let's keep going. Fun times.
Thank you to CJ Rebek, by the way, for the gift sub.
Okay. Oh, we broke Maria's PC. I'm sorry. Sorry, Maria. That's typical. Okay.
All right. Okay, so everything is good. Let us start here.
Okay.
So basically, we'll be talking through a bunch of situations. Game one, right? I'm playing. So for those who maybe just late joined, I'm international master, had a very stable rating over the last few years. At the time of this tournament, it was 24-27. Okay. And I was playing against a 2100 rated player. Okay. So we'll just show a good comparison when I show you the next game, which I think is here. Yeah, the next game, sorry, you guys can't actually see the writing, but this second game is going to be against Mircea Parligras, who some people will know as he's been streaming over the last few months, but he's a 2600 plus, long time 2600 plus grandmaster. So we're going to see the difference in opening prep between one and the other. But let's take a look at this game against the 2100 first of all. So in my preparations, as you know, I play the Grunfeld, and with an opening we've spoken about recently. And basically in my preparations, what I noticed is that he always plays this particular variation with b4. Do you know anything about this this line?
Actually, I don't.
Okay. So what's the sort of the fundamental logic of this move?
Well, fundamental logic is to grab more space, potentially put the bishop on b2, and maybe even grab space with c5 and play on the queen side.
Yeah, a lot of that is in fact, all of that I believe is true. But we can also add one thing, which is there's a prophylaxis, an element of prophylaxis to this move. So what is white
preventing c5?
Yeah, c5, which is hoping to frustrate black's plans. Because in a Grunfeld, c5 is almost always played. Yep. So against b4, so I noticed that he played like this and that he kept repeating the system. So my question for you, Nicola, is when you're prepping for an opponent, how much attention do you pay to like whether they're how rigidly do you stick to a particular opening line versus how much attention do you play to, oh, does my opponent play some system that isn't good? Let me prep against that system. Do you know what I'm asking you here in terms of this, or?
Actually, I've just prepped for Danny. I can answer that question in some specifics, and in the meantime, just a quick shout out to Partenopi Chess, WFM Maria de la Rosa. Thank you for joining the stream. It's very good to see you here. Hey, Adriana, very, very good to see you. Thank you for being here. Adriana Nikolova is a big is a streamer. Is a big streamer. She is a very strong WGM from Bulgaria. She's a dear friend, and please check out her channel. It's very good to It's very good to see you here, Adriana. And Partenope actually has, Maria de la Rosa has one of the nicest emotes. Like that siren emote is one of my favorites on all of Twitch. So please give Maria the follow and please give Adriana a follow. It's very good to see you ladies here. Thank you so much. All right, so the question was, let me see if I can rephrase it. In other words, do I look for the particular line in my opponent's openings that I can prepare against, or do I look for general tendencies and strategic plans? Is that the question, or am I misunderstanding?
So let me rephrase. So the question would be, there are some people, like some players, who they're very principled and they'll stick to one particular line that they like to play. And then there's others who are more like trying to hunt their opponent and trying to figure out, oh, my opponent plays this weak line. Let me try and find the line that my opponent likes that I don't think is good, and let me take the game to that territory. So which category do you fall into? Are you a principled player who always repeats your choice of lines, or do you try and hunt your opponent?
I try to hunt my opponent. And big shout out to Tom Morale, Full Player Chess, who just gave us a raid with a party of 40. Tom is a great friend of this channel, and I'm very happy to see him here. Thank you, Tom. It's very good to see you here. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for the raid. And raiders, this is the inaugural session of lessons with International Master Alex Astaneh Lopez. It's Alex is a dear friend of mine and a coach and a trainer, and we have been working together, and I blame him for all my lack of progress. Haha. All right. Yeah, I actually, honestly, what I do is I hunt for weaknesses in my opponent's opening preparations, basically.
All right. Okay, excellent. So we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
And basically, this is what happened against this player. What I noticed is that I saw that against c6, the main move, and we see, for example, people like greats like Ivanchuk playing this only a few months ago. The main move is to just develop here with bishop to b2. But my opponent, he really liked to play push the pawn here on a4. And what I noticed is that against this particular setup here with bishop g4, he really liked, he liked to get into this particular position. And I decided to go for this because I realized that there was actually a lot of poison here, right? I mean, let's say that basically in this position, he had played a4 a bunch of times, and never had they played the best move, the best computer move, bishop g4. So I understood this was going to be his first time in this position. And the question is, how do you play this? So that's my first question for you, Nicola. I mean, if you're now white in this position, what would you do?
Okay, very good. And just a quick shout out to all people who have just joined us. This is the inaugural session of lessons with Alex, with one and only International Master Alex Astaneh Lopez, who is also a fellow streamer. He is he's a dear friend, and this is our first torture session that we're going to do on a weekly basis. Okay, this very honestly appears to be a little bit too aggressive as general. So I think what I would do is I would continue to grab space on the queen side, and I would hope that I can get c5 and b5 in before you can generate counterplay with, you know, something like knight d7 and e5, which I think would be a counter to white's space grabbing. You know, having never seen this position, I'm not sure that's actually the right plan, but that's what I would go for.
Okay, so specifically, if you were white, what would be your next move?
c5.
c5. Okay, so let's go c5.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Lucizo. Thank you for being here.
And now, let me say that I play something like a5 here. You would carry on with b5. Would that be fair enough?
Yes.
b5. Okay.
And
Now
of
I would.
course, Alex is going to tell me that's a losing move.
Now I will just play knight d7.
Okay, and I really cannot prevent e5 effectively, which I presume is your plan.
Correct. Yeah.
All
So
right.
nice spot there. That e5 is absolutely. I mean, if like so, Nicola is you're at a level where this idea of e5 is very natural to you. If
Yeah.
on the other hand, I was working with a student and it's like, oh, e5 is the plan here, and they don't recognize that, I think it would be enough to spend the next hour, just talking about this because it's such an important typical idea.
Yeah. No, thank you. And for the record, and this is, I learned, you taught me that actually, to look naturally at pawn challenges. So.
Yeah, this is the major break in the position. And also for the viewers, I mean, why are you interested in playing this? Besides the fact that white has more space, there's something else about the black position that it makes him interested in opening things up.
Well, black has an advantage in black has a little bit of advantage in development, and white king needs to castle, and if black manages to open up the e file before white king castles, or manages to do white is going to be in trouble to push e4, like e5 and e4. It's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, and besides e5 and e4 being a possibility, there's, as you said, e5 takes, and then that e file cracks open, and the king is going to be in trouble. And I want you also to maybe comment on why I inserted these moves a5 and b5, and why are they in black's favor?
That's actually a good question. All right. Okay. Hey, bye, chess guy, 1976. Thank you for joining. It was very good to see you. Okay. Because actually, honestly, that I'm not so sure. The advantage is that if we take on b5, a b5, we'd end up with a passed pawn, but I don't think that's really significant now. But it also prevents cramping the black's position fully by pushing something like, if white had an option to play a5, knight f4, knight b6, that may reinforce its position. And that's honestly all I can think of.
Okay, so it's a good thought here. Just what Nicola is suggesting is that maybe a5 was a concern, but in this case, I'm going to have to disagree and say, like, so your full plan a5, knight a4, knight b6, and say that, let's pretend black just wastes a move and you get a5, and now let's say black gets this setup here.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world really, because it's pretty locked down. So although you have a bunch of space and it is to your advantage, I'm okay. I'll play in the center.
No, the idea here was not to play a5. I mean, we play b5, exchange on c6, then play on, like play b5 here.
Okay. b5 here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
In here and b5 here.
Yeah, and then we exchange and, or whatever. And then, yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Mm-hmm. But even this is really not such a concern. So because in this case, I mean, black's pieces are coming into play. Maybe black will be able to crack at this strong pawn and break things down. The actual sort of, I think, the most critical element of why a5 is attractive for black, it's not about preventing those setups, right, as we just showed, but in fact, it's about the fact that after b5, there is a point in the white position that is now a lot less stable. And so we see that when the knight comes to d7, it's actually pointing at that point. So what am I speaking about?
You're talking about pawn on c5, which is not exactly, actually it's kind of almost pinned now. because knight e4 and then that bishop on g7 is a monster.
Right, exactly. So we're seeing that there's going to be a lot more tactical possibilities, and this sort of points to what we've spoken about before. What I like to say, which I'm sure you've heard me say more times than you care to remember, but it's this thing about how instability can be a lot of the time the reason for tactics. And so black is interested to make that white position more unstable because black is the one with the initiative. Why does black have the initiative?
Black has an initiative because it has an advantage in development. It has a concrete plan to push e5, at which point that pawn okay. And honestly, there is one. Okay, basically, you played, and I should have understood. You played a5 to get the pawn of before because then c5 pawn becomes a permanent and perennial weakness. If you play e5, white is hard pressed to take because then c4 is hanging. And if the pawn stayed on b4, then that pawn would have double protection. Okay, yeah, understood.
Yeah, a lot of basically all of that. Plus, also, there's just going to be straight up knight takes c5 captures in certain variations. Yeah. So, for example, right, let's play this position out, and we're not going to try and test you, like calculate the best move here for 10 minutes, but just tell me what you would play if it was a blitz game as white here.
As white?
Yeah.
Ooh, tough question. I would probably try immediately to play bishop e2, castle quickly. So that's one candidate move. Another candidate move would be to play bishop b2, so we can counter that bishop and maybe play queen c2. So some sort of a plan was to play bishop e2, castle, play bishop b2, then queen c2, so bishop and b2 is defended. And if we can execute that sequence, then we are actually... I'm not going to say we are okay, but we are in decent shape.
No, actually, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, like, let's not veer too much off track, but basically, right, if I play a move like king h8, suddenly white is better. And the reason, we won't focus on this, but the reason is because in a nutshell, white has a static factor to his advantage, a static advantage in his favor, excuse me. And that is what? What is his static advantage? His long term.
Long term, he has more space.
Correct, exactly. So he will squeeze black long term. But on the other hand, black has a short term, a dynamic advantage, which is the initiative. So black has to act fast. Yeah. And I think that's what you were getting at.
Yes, exactly.
That if you give me enough time, I'm going to consolidate, and then you're going to be in trouble. Okay. I agree with you. However, black will act fast as a result. So bishop e2, by the way, that was when I asked you what move comes naturally to you. That's also the move that would come naturally to me, and I think to most players. Okay. Now I will go knight to e4. Okay. And you see now I'm striking at that piece that's undefended. And you're in a bit of trouble because two pieces are undefended, and this pawn is loose, and we see the X-ray. So how do you deal with this?
All right, so just a very quick shout out to Noam Lifshitz for the follow. Thank you, my friend. Vitaly OMG, thank you for the follow. Very greatly appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It's good to have you guys here. So the question here is, and thank you, Uncle Bob 69420 for the follow. So we now have a concrete problem. And concrete problem is that we have this big monster bishop on g7 that we somehow need to counter. And Chirag005, thank you for the follow again. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, so we can we afford to take and play knight d2? That's one option.
Right.
Another option is to just play bishop b2.
Okay.
The problem with bishop b2 is that you can almost immediately play knight c5.
Without the almost, right?
Without the almost, yeah.
You can actually take. Well spotted.
Yeah.
And we see, just for the viewers, that this knight would then fall.
Yeah.
And we see again this issue with having the benefit of having provoked b5.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a concrete defense, and we need it now. Okay. All right, so what can we play here? We're almost forced to take, right?
Right, okay, so taking, then taking. And now you move the knight.
And then
I don't know where you prefer.
I'll move it to d2, for example.
To d2.
And then we're going to exchange, and then we're going to... The problem is that the knight from c5 has this very nasty jump on d3.
Yeah, so you're suggesting that black would play what here?
Knight c5.
Absolutely, knight takes c5. So you see that the moral of the story isn't find a way to save white, because it's actually too late. There's no way to save white.
There's no way to save white.
Yeah. The moral of the story is actually that this move here would be the first thing to try and sort of keep in mind for future. This is a very typical idea across a range of structures.
Yeah, I see that.
So a5, b5, and then the c5 pawn gives a lot of problems in a lot of instances. And how this all started was that what I said is I picked against my lower rated opponent. I saw the database and I saw he always goes in for this position here with a4. And I thought this is an okay position for black to play into. And then I tried to find the move that would give him the most problems.
Yeah.
So the move that I felt would give him the most problems to solve over the board was bishop g4. And we see how easy it is to get into trouble if you start pushing pawns.
Yep. And c5 was obviously not the right plan.
Yeah. And here's a question for you. Yeah, exactly. So c5, white doesn't have enough time. Black is just too fast with his ideas, with this nice idea of a5.
And funny thing is, I actually saw the e5, and it appears that you can push b5, but you actually don't. And the difference is that insertion of a5 into the whole sequence. Because if you don't play e5, I have enough time.
Yeah, so what Nicola is saying is, let's say that after c5, knight d7, something like this, bishop e2, e5, I think this is roughly what you were looking at, something like this.
Yeah.
Or you could even consider taking this pawn, for example. I don't know, some kind of position like this. And black is doing quite okay when he recovers the pawn, but it's a lot less bad than the other situation.
Yeah, no, the other is,
the other is totally lost, yeah. So after bishop g4, what happens if instead white plays the natural move, bishop e2?
Yes, Dirk, it's 6 a.m. I get up early, so for me, this is actually normal. Actually, for what's worth, Alex and I had been having 6 a.m. lessons for quite some time now, so this is a normal time for me.
I've tried to persuade Nicola against this, but he persists.
All right, so I'm white now, and I'm trying. This is after bishop e2.
So my question to you is: if you play bishop e2, if white instead of going for c5 goes bishop e2, do you think that that's a good move? Would that be your next move besides c5 that you suggest, or would you suggest something else?
Well, I mean, even without the bishop e2 is a potential loss of tempo, right? If you're not going to take on c4, or maybe you will. All right, so let me think for a second. And the board disappeared for a second.
Sorry.
No worries. The boy Jazz, thank you for the follow. Very greatly appreciated. Thank you for the follow. So, And Caesar said, thank you for the follow. I think playing bishop b2 is one candidate move, if nothing, to reinforce that knight. That's one of the reasons we played b4 after all, right? I'm not sure I want to play b5 without c5, because though that's actually a possibility, then we can try to play a minority type attack on the queen side. I still need to castle, so bishop e2 is a perfectly fine move. And we don't necessarily care about that c4 pawn, right? Because bishop f3 take on c4, and we're kind of hoping to recoup that pawn at some point.
So time is up. What is the move that you would play here? Would you go bishop e2?
I'm trying to figure out this position. I'll play bishop b2 actually first.
Bishop b2?
Yeah.
Bishop b2. Okay, that's fair enough.
Oh,
and I will play knight d7.
Yeah. And just wanted to give a quick shout out to International Master Mark Esserman. Thank you for the raid. Mark is a dear friend of mine, and I'm very good. Thank you for the raid. I couldn't think that there would be a time when Mark would be raiding me, but there we go. I'm up, and Mark is actually just finishing his stream. So thank you, Mark. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you, and please give Mark a follow. Mark has probably the most instructive late night chess stream on Twitch, and he's a dear friend of mine. So, all right. Going back, so I play bishop b2. That doesn't, I don't know. We still have to deal. The idea is here to kind of try to deal with, the e5 is still a threat. The problem with playing bishop b2 that we kind of allow e5, and then we can't allow e4, because if we allow e4, then we may be in a little bit of trouble space-wise. I'm just thinking loud. I'm going to stick with bishop b2, and you are probably going to.
No, I mean
bishop e2 comes across as the most natural of moves.
Absolutely, and I think that you're playing very, very well here. But I'm just trying to make a point in this position. But unfortunately, you're playing a little too well. It's making it difficult to make my point. So hopefully the blunder will come.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Barrows Chess. Hello, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining the stream.
So let's capture here on f3.
Okay. All right. I guess we don't want to play gf3, right? So we kind of already committed to, So yeah, we're taking with the bishop.
Take with the bishop. Okay, and then I'll take the pawn.
Okay. I can give you a taste of your own medicine and play b5 here, and I can also castle. Okay. You can't really defend that pawn on c4, so I'm basically betting that I would be able to collect it at some point. But I can try to do it quickly. I think bishop on f3 is very well placed, so I can play candidate moves are queen e2, b5, and castle. So I'm betting that I have time, and I don't see any threats regarding to the a1 h8 diagonal, so I'm gonna stick with. So I'm just gonna castle.
You're just gonna castle. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna castle. Now I guess I'll break you here in the center.
Okay.
And to be honest, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to sort of stop the analysis here. And I'm going to say you pretty much played perfectly, right?
Oh,
I
thank you.
mean, and that was the problem, right? Because I was hoping that that some mistake would creep in at an earlier point, and it would be easier for me to argue that this is a good choice from black. But nevertheless, even with perfect play from white, here's sort of the argument. You play this line here with bishop g4, and now you create certain problems, right?
Yeah.
If white chooses to play the natural path, like expand and grab some space, then he's already in serious trouble. He's going to get broken with e5, a5, just going to break the position. White doesn't have time. If white, on the other hand, in this position here goes, I don't know, bishop e2 first, goes bishop e2 first, then we can grab this pawn here. And white has a very difficult decision. Like, do I take the pawn or do I, for example, castle? If you castle, you're already in trouble because after knight d5, it turns out that because the pawn on b4 and the knight on c3 are both undefended, then you see the problems, right? I mean, white cannot take back like this because after pawn takes, the pawn on c4 would be defended. So we're seeing some very, very easy problems to sort of fall into if you're white here. However, you played fantastically. Like, you basically put the bishop on b2, you supported the knight on c3.
Okay.
And after knight d7, only then did you play bishop e2. And suddenly these ideas are less interesting because if I go knight d5, your knight is defending. So you actually solve the problems. But my question to you would be, did you see all of these possibilities, or were you just playing on intuition?
Well, you told me the time's up, so... Look, did I calculate all of this? No, but it's pretty obvious from strategic point of view that the weak spot, that bishop needs to go on e2 so white can castle. That the knight on c3 is a weak link in white's position. So, I was lucky probably with a move order, but yeah, it's a natural play once you understand that you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I mean, like, yeah, kudos on finding the right sequence, but I sort of want to bring it back to the original point, which is that from this position here, there were a lot of ways for white to go wrong. If he had played c5, he was in trouble. If he played bishop e2 first, he was in trouble. And even if he found the best sequence, which is the one that you found, which is after bishop g4, to first go bishop e2, to then take with the bishop and give up this pawn, and to get some kind of compensation, even here, after making a series of really difficult decisions, in this position. So this is exactly how you want to prepare against players when you find that they have a line that is not very good. Here would be a mistake. I'll show you sort of a common mistake. In this position, a common mistake when you might be preparing against an opponent is you might look at the computer and the computer might tell you that this is the best move. And that would actually be true. Like, the computer prefers this move. But this would be a mistake when you're preparing, if you want to get your best results. Why is a move like bishop g4 a lot smarter as a choice than a move like bishop f5? Can you take a guess?
Yeah, because the path to countering it is very narrow. I mean, the bishop b2 then followed by bishop e2 is not a natural sequence of moves, and it's more natural sequence of move is the other way around, which obviously poses problems in the line you showed. And just a quick shout out to Structural Play and Structural Prodigies who gave us a follow. Thank you guys for the follow. That means a lot and it's very greatly appreciated. Okay. All right. Well, and for the record, I've played c5 first and got destroyed. So it's not like I was playing this, that well. But okay, I'll take the compliment. God knows they come few and far between.
But to respond to this bishop f5, bishop g4 difference, really it's exactly what you say. It's about narrowing the path.
Yeah.
It's about narrowing the path. If I go bishop f5 here, the computer might like this move. But, you know, white can just play bishop e2. And I don't know, what can I do? Knight here and castle. It's very straightforward, the decisions for white. But after bishop g4, well, in some situations, we're going to take this knight and break open with e5 now that the knight isn't covering the square. In other situations, we're going to take here, and with his bishop here, he's going to have to make a decision between ruining his pawn structure or losing a pawn. Yes. So it's all about, whenever you find the weakness, when you're preparing, if you find the weak line, it's all about narrowing the path and putting maximum pressure on your opponent. Yeah. So that was sort of the first key point that I wanted to make in this game. By the way, my opponent went into the tank and he went queen b3 here, which immediately is not so good to ruin the structure like this.
Well, he's 2100, which he's stronger than me, but that looks like he is lashing out.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm not too sure what his thinking was. We didn't discuss it after. So now knight d7. And white played f4. What's the idea behind f4?
To permanently prevent, e5.
Exactly.
And open up a little space for the light squared bishop, but that's secondary. I think, preventing e5 is the primary reason. The problem is it comes at the price of, it's a pretty bad pawn structure, and I'm not sure where white king is going to castle.
Yeah, exactly right. So I went rook e8 here. So, which I guess makes sense, just trying to sidestep the bishop on a3.
Yeah.
Bishop went to e2. And now my next question to you. You're in this position as black. How do you continue?
It's a tough question, actually. And this is a question that I actually routinely have problems with in my own games. In other words, the question is, how does one improves one position from here? I mean, a5 is it's still somewhat appealing, but not as much as it was before. Okay. Actually, I don't have a good answer here, to be honest, Alex. We can try to take on c4 and play knight d5, but that's basically doesn't look appealing. I don't think we can play e5. Knight on d7 is pretty passive, but I don't see how. If the idea is to play, I don't see any tactical motives. So, for us to play knight b6, knight c8, knight d6, knight e4 is like torturous and slow. We can, hey, 2007 Vishnu, it's very good to see you, my friend. Thank you. All right. This is one of those positions that you need to spend 10 minutes thinking, at least I feel the need.
Let me give you 1 more minute, actually, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, hey, I want X. Thank you for the subscription, my friend. It's very good to see you. Thank you. Okay, and for the record, guys, this is the type of position that I historically have trouble with because it's a long-term strategic plan. We have a very solid pawn structure that's very hard to play against. The position is fairly closed, but figuring out how to proceed is a little bit on the tough side. The knight on f6 is very well placed, but it has really nowhere to go. I mean, we can't even... the problem here is... Okay, so here is one idea that comes up to my mind. The bishop on g7 is very strong, but it's currently blocked by the pawn on d4. So we can try to do b6 and then push c5. That's one option. Okay. The problem there is that then, so to give that bishop more scope. Another option is to play something along the lines of knight b6 and then question that, you know, whether we want to exchange the knight. Okay, so Alex, here are my thoughts.
All right.
Thought number one is to try to open up the position, so to give our bishop on g7 a little bit of more space. So something along the lines of playing b6 and then c5.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is to play knight b6 and see where that what's happening, if white is going to play c5 or not.
Yeah.
And then if white plays, in other words, to provoke c5 and then play along the lines that we already discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't see any other plan. I might be missing something.
Okay. So
yeah.
Final answer would be, what move would you play?
Final answer here would be to basically, I don't know, the normally she is suggesting a5, playing a5 in this position, which is not impossible. I would just play knight b6.
Knight b6.
Yeah.
Okay. Knight b6. And your idea is that if I play c5 here,
I'm going to go back and then I'm going to push a5 afterwards.
Okay.
And then continue along the lines. But that's a less strong line because of bishop a3 on a3. And I don't think I have time.
Yeah, and also let's say that in this position, I just want to point out a5 would be a mistake here, because this structure here is too good for white. Are we sort of clear on why that structure?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, or I can decide that I'm going to do Café de la Régence and just play e5, and if you take, I'm going to sacrifice the knight with the rook and play against the black king.
Yeah. Yeah, but we would be having a serious conversation about that if you did this.
Well, depends who I'm playing against. If I'm playing against Adriana, who is here in chat, and let's give Adriana a shout out, one more shout out. You know, I'm not doing that because Adriana is a technical wizard, a tactical wizard, so she's gonna kill me. But if I'm playing against a strong positional player, that may even work. Yes, and yeah, we're gonna have a conversation about it. And for the record, this is one of my usual problems. When I don't know what to do, I lash out, and that doesn't end up too well.
You know, by the way, actually, that knight b6 is a really interesting idea in this position, but it has to come in connection with something else, with a plan. Okay. So after knight b6, when he played c5, you said, let's just drop the knight back. But what's an idea?
You want to go back to c8 and then shift the knight to the king side?
To which square on the king side?
f5.
Absolutely. That's really nice. So that's a really nice spot. And again, by the way, just for the viewers, I think that this lesson can sometimes be maybe, I don't know how strong your viewer base is, Nicola, but sometimes it can be a little bit strange because we're sort of assuming knowledge of a lot of different things, right? And so Nicola, for those who, I guess most of your viewers know your strength, right? But, you know, in terms of like the top percentage, Like in terms of your strength, what are you top? I don't know. Do you know yourself? Like, what is your percentile?
I have no idea. I really don't. I always assume that I'm somewhere between 1900 and 2000. So I don't know what that makes me percentile, but we have quite a few titled players here. So anyway, no, but I think we need to explain, obviously, because yeah.
Yeah, and so sometimes we're sort of glossing over different things, but just to kind of comment, if I were working with a less experienced student, this is a really important, like making the connections between this move and landing the knight on f5 is really, really important, because this is showing this comes if you study structures for a long time, and you gain a lot of experience. And so Nicola just sort of quickly spotted this sequence and spotted the benefit of putting the knight on f5. If you want to sort of explain why the knight on f5.
Yeah, that's a good outpost for the knight, because it's obviously there is no g pawn, so it can't be disturbed, and e4 is not very appealing, and it's kind of hitting potentially the pawn, d4, which is one of the relatively weak spots, and it's hitting the e3, which is around the king. So there are all sorts of interesting motives along the lines of maybe sacrificing that knight. We can also play knight h4, because that's a weak spot in white's position, because that bishop who is supposed to control it is on a3 on the opposite side of the board, and there is no g pawn again. So that's a really good spot for the knight, and of course it's furthest away possible in terms of knight hops. It's like that short diagonal. So, but it's the weakest piece here is actually that knight on d7. So improving that knight is strategically important.
Yeah, really, really good points. Really well explained there. I don't have anything to add to that, Nicola.
For the record, guys, this is highly unusual. I'm getting I'm playing way better than I usually do, and I'm getting way more compliments from Alex than I usually do. So I'm really enjoying this stream. We should stream this. I think we're gonna stream every Friday just on that basis only. So anyway. And incidentally, Fiona and Adriana are remembering the game they played. I'm very looking forward to. Anyway, I'm very happy that connection has been established. So, all right. So, do we need to worry about white's plan here? You were indicating a6. Do we need?
No, a6. Sorry, was just a mouse slip. What I was going to say is basically, if you went in this road, down this road, which would basically sort of invite white to play c5. By the way, again, for the viewers, why can white not play something like castle? Well, just to not spend time on it, because I know you know the answer, Nicola. It would just be to take, and then that's an achievement for black rather, because when the knight captured, the bishop captured, and well, what white's advantages are in this position is the bishop pair, as well as the space advantage.
Yeah.
So by allowing that sequence, white loses his bishop pair and a big chunk of his space advantage. So white can't allow that, hence c5. Then black would reroute here, and this would remain a closed position, which is there are some good arguments for improving the one bad piece, as Nicola said, bringing it, or maybe your biggest problem piece, bringing it to such a great square, in creating attacking chances long term, and keeping the position relatively closed. What chess principle makes you kind of want to keep the position closed? Or what detail of the position?
Okay, this is usually when I get into trouble. The principle of improving one's position?
So principle is maybe a bad, in fact, definitely a bad word, bad choice of word from me. I mean, what feature of the black position here? What's something that black has that kind of pulls him in the direction of keeping the position closed?
But the black has a pair of knights, and obviously, if we open the position, white's bishop pair is gonna come to bear, and it's gonna be very unpleasant.
Yeah, that's it, right? And so this plan makes a lot of sense. Keep the position closed, encourage white to push c5. In fact, force white to push c5. Then drive that knight to a beautiful square. And that might be the second best way of playing this position. But now I'm going to mess with your head, Nicola.
Okay, nothing unusual.
And I'm going to tell you that this is the best move in the position, which seems to go exactly against what we just said, which is we want to keep the position closed because we have a pair of knights and he has a pair of bishops. So why is this the best move?
Okay. Well, because we're gonna... All right. Well, getting to b6 with tempo is one part of it.
Okay.
Another part of it is that we're gonna have this outpost on d5. Hey, yeah. Alan Nilsson, thank you for joining the stream. Thank you for the follow. It's very good to see you. Big shout out to Alan Nilsson, who is a dear friend and a great streamer. And please give her a follow if you already haven't done. And did I manage to mess this up? Let's see. It's 2 L's. Neil.
It's the second N.
It's the second. Yeah, there you go. That's better. Thanks, Alan. And thank you, Access Ready for the follow. Very greatly appreciate it. It's good to see you, Alan, here. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we're gonna take, and then we're gonna play knight b6. And then what? I think the concrete thing here is that if we parked one of the knights on d5, like if we play knight b6, knight d5.
So let's say something like this. Yeah. You want knight b6, or let's say knight d5 immediately. Let's say something like that.
Good question.
But let's assume, just knight d5 first. So we're arguing that this position is something that black can get away with doing, to take this pawn on c4.
Yeah.
Even though it improves the bishop placement, to open up the position, even though white has a bishop pair. And the question we're trying to answer is, why can black break the rules like that? What does he get in return?
Well, he gets an attack. Because we're going to park the queen on h4, and then we're threatening knight e3. And we can play against the king, and we can even, he's going to kill me now. We can even grab on, then we can even maybe at some point grab on f4 and then take on d4. And it's take advantage of the perishable thing we have, which is the initiative.
Right.
This is a type of play that Kasparov and Magnus would play, and the plan we outlined is something that Karpov would enjoy playing.
So you mentioned two things, Nicola. You said initiative, using the initiative, and you said attack. And that's exactly right. Those are the two things that make you able to break the rules here.
Yeah.
And so the rule number one that people sort of learn, or guideline, we should say, rather than a rule, is when your opponent has the bishop pair, keep the position closed. But we build on that, and we have a second rule, which is actually think twice when you have the safer king, or when you have a lead in development.
Or you have very specific reasons for, tactical reasons for preferring to open up the position. And here is the thing, when we play knight d5, let's assume white wants to take. And white's take, we're going to take with an e-pawn, and all of a sudden our rook is coming into play.
Yes, oh, absolutely. I mean, if he takes like this, then this is a dream come true because our
Yeah.
rook comes into play. And importantly now, I mean, white has to go to only one square to not immediately lose a pawn, which is that square,
E2.
e2. Because if I go here, what happens?
I'm taking on d4 and the pawn is pinned.
Right. So white would have to go bishop e2. But with this structure, now black finds beautiful squares for all his pieces. This position is really horrible. How would you continue, actually? What move comes to mind?
Okay, I can play. I would go and put the queen on h4 and then play knight f6.
Yeah, perfect.
And I'll play this. This is like, aggressive player's dream position.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah. So white cannot allow this. I mean, now if white castles, you're going to go bishop takes d4 because the bishop on e2 would be hanging. And if white plays, I don't know, instead something like rook here, then maybe you could even plant the queen here and forever the king is stuck.
Oh yeah, no, this if we put this for stockfish, it's like probably +2 if not more.
Yeah, I mean it's
-2, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a horror show. So white absolutely cannot do that. Improving the structure and activating the black pieces is
and this
recipe
is
for disaster.
Yeah, this sequence is why putting the knight on d5 is actually better than playing knight b6.
No, in fact, actually, knight b6 and knight d5 are very similar. Okay. It's really hard to figure out which one is better. Like from a computer perspective, it considers both to be equal. It's a very similar idea. Actually went for knight b6 in the game. Maybe knight d5 is the smarter practical choice because it's sort of easier for white to go wrong. But I went knight b6 here, bishop e2, and then I put the knight on d5.
Yeah.
But the big takeaway is just when we have the pair of knights against the pair of bishops, if we have a safer king and a lead in development, we break the rules and we look to open up the position. So here, knight d5, now white went ahead and he castled. And the second that he castled, I said, oh, tactical mistake from my opponent.
Yeah, what can we do here? Take on d4?
You really want to take on d4?
I'm kidding, but yeah. I mean, there is no need to force this position.
Yeah, taking on d4 is interesting at first sight, but after taking here, I guess your idea is this, and for sure, queen g5, queen g2, I think from like a blitz perspective, it's a nice idea, but
yeah, no, it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough oomph.
Yeah,
looks nice,
and especially, sorry to cut across.
No, please.
Especially one thing that I really liked about what you said is you said there's no need to force, and that's huge because when you're ahead, like when you have a much better position, you should try and take less risk.
Yeah.
More risk when you're in trouble.
Okay. Hey, Lali, my friend, it's very good to see you. I'm streaming a lesson with Alex, and this is an EU-friendly stream, so I'm happy for once that you can be here, and it's not 2 a.m. your time. So thank you for being here. Okay, so all right. So what is the natural plan here? I mean, it makes sense to park the queen on h4.
Well, so first of all, I thought my opponent has just blundered, and I'm going to capitalize on that.
All right.
So what did I?
Tactical motive that I'm not seeing here. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Nice to see you, Lally. And by the way, somebody else, I think it was Noam. Noam Lifshitz said, is your eventual plan in the former pawn structure to play f65? We won't go back to that position, but yeah, that could be a plan. Although it's very risky because the queen is on b3, king is on g8, so you have to watch out. And when you play f6, the pawn on g6 is weak. But like it could, depending on how the game goes, it could be that's like one of the possible plans. So really nice spot there.
All right, so tactical blunder, and of course this is something that Nicola doesn't see. So it's What am I not seeing here? All right, so instead of taking on d4, can we take on f4 and then take there? I'm not sure of that. And then we can maybe take with a queen. So that's,
okay, so
that's
so when
risky. Yeah,
sorry, no apologies. When we're looking to solve a tactic, whether it's in like a puzzle situation like this one or just over the board, we would look at the checks first, if there are any, and then we would look at the captures. What's the first capture we should consider here?
Okay. All right, we have one check that's not meaningful. The first capture is, we have a capture on c3.
And that should be the first to consider. Why?
Because the pawn on a4 will remain undefended.
Right, so that's actually the tactic right there. But the reason why we should consider knight takes c3 before any of these other captures is why?
Okay, you lost me, but all right.
Well, the reason is because this is the highest
That's the
value.
highest value capture, yes, as opposed to all the pawns. Correct. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So we start there, we look at the checks, then we look at the highest value captures, and then we move down. So here, after knight takes c3, queen takes c3, I saw, well, I can just grab a pawn, and I went for this. But it turns out that if my opponent had played something like queen c2, hitting my knight, and then I had moved back, it turns out he would have had a move here that every other move, by the way, leaves black winning, just up a clean pawn. But he has one move here that gives him more or less complete compensation. What is that move that I sort of underestimated?
Okay, we're talking about b5.
Absolutely, nice. And again, for the viewers, sort of Nicola spots this move, and we sort of gloss over these moments most of the time. But maybe you can explain, Nicola, like why is b5 kind of the first thing to come to mind?
Because it's gonna end up let's assume that some sort of natural sequence, cb5, bishop b5, and then a rook fb1. Or I'm just, I'm first that rook has nowhere to go, so that's that can't be played.
Yeah.
And
so maybe something like queen b5.
So you have to play this, and then you end up with a semi-busted pawn structure, and all of a sudden position is a little bit open. And yes, you have an extra pawn, that pawn is weakness. So I'm not sure that white is actually not even better in this position, actually.
Exactly right. This is about equal, but I think from a play white.
You broke up for a second. So what would white play here?
So is that I agree with you. It's about equal. But from a practical point of view, it's probably easier to play as white.
Yes, because we play against that pawn on c6.
Yeah, we've got these really easy play against this pawn, and black sort of has to make this uncomfortable next few moves where he's on the defensive.
Yeah.
And even if he somehow finds himself in an endgame, still nursing his extra pawn, his weak extra pawn, it might still be a draw. There's a lot of, as we know, these drawing possibilities.
Yeah, no, this reminded me of those positions in like Banco Gambit, when you have these pawns, even if you have pawns in b7 and a. I mean, and this is actually worse position than in Banco. You have two pawns that are on. Yeah, that's definitely a good position for white.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I underestimated all of this, and if would be basically winning, if not for the fact that white has this move, by the way, is if I now wait to move as white, what can black do here that will sort of take away that option?
Take away b5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And all right. By the way, we are on Chess TV, just FYI. And just for the
So,
people who joined us, this is the inaugural session of lessons with International Master Alex Astaneh Lopez. Welcome, guys.
hello to everyone.
International Master Alex Lopez is a former Irish champion and my coach and friend for some time. And he also coaches on coaches and has has his own stream channel. So please give him a follow.
Appreciate that, Nicola.
Yeah, welcome. So okay, so after this, this is actually an interesting position.
Well, all I suppose what I'm asking is, we know you said b5 here, cracking open the bishops. That's the way to play for white, 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm saying white has to do it quickly, because if we waste time, let's say some king move, then what would black play to just shut that down?
Yeah, we can play. We can play queen d5 with check.
Queen d5 with check is sort of a nice idea here.
Yeah.
But what's the way to just completely...
You're talking about playing a6.
Yeah, you will kill this forever, right?
Yeah. And then we are actually definitely better.
a6, we kill it forever. And this pawn now there are less open lines, but on top of that pawn stands in the way, and it's an isolated pawn. So with your move, b5, you achieve a lot. You open up the diagonals for the bishops, you get rid of your isolated pawn, and you inflict a damaged pawn structure for black.
So it needs to be played immediately. It's a perishable. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I made the mistake. I got greedy here. I took the knight on c3. I took the pawn on a4, and I said, my opponent, he was actually like 71 years old. He had been very, very strong at his peak, like 2,300 plus. But I thought, okay, he's made a tactical oversight, and I took the pawn too quickly. I got overconfident, and I got punished here. He went b5. He had found this whole sequence, and now I'm the one, not in trouble per se, but he has full compensation.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that bishops are strong. That
very
bishop
strong.
on a3 is pretty strong all of a sudden from being a tall pawn. And if that bishop on e2 gets to an f3, it's also a very strong diagonal. Yeah.
Very, very strong. And so now I'm going to ask you a really tough question. And it's this. In this position here, after knight takes c3, it turns out that this is a good move. But after queen takes c3, there is one move here that would actually be really good for black. What would be the best move for black here?
In other words, you're asking me to find a move that you did not.
That's one way of phrasing it.
Okay, this reminds me of my sessions with Anne, which Anna said, oh yeah, he's a 2700 grandmaster and a former world champion, but can you find a better move? God knows that happened quite a few times. Okay.
I just think this is a super instructive moment because...
Okay. All right, so we can play knight d5 and then have all these sequences that we discussed. The problem is that b5 is an even stronger sequence, but we're not the pawn up. And that motive remains there. Obviously not immediately. We don't want to play Bottas Gambit. But in other words, J-piece, we kind of looked at that before. It transpires that if you take on a4 after queen b3, then white plays b5, and all of a sudden it's a very tough structure. Hey Nandi Chess, it's very good to see you. Thank you. Nandi Chess is a friend and a fellow streamer. Please give her a follow. She's a WFM and a very strong player. All right, so we can play a6, but with the pawn on a4, that doesn't make much of a difference, right? Because b5 is still strong. Okay. So what do we do here? I mean, knight d5 appears to be a natural move. Okay. What else do we have? Alex, we have a question in the chat. Who was this game against?
So this was against an Icelandic player called Haldorsson, Raggi Haldorsson.
Okay.
So far, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat with the correct answer. Feel free to take a shot at what is.
Yeah, chat that this is Alex mildly roasting you. Mildly.
What? I'm not so sure. I think I'm the one. I think I'm the one getting roasted, Nicola.
I have to push back a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have an interesting perception of events.
That's fine. Okay, I'm going to play knight d5, and I'm going to see where you're moving the queen.
Okay, so knight d5, I mean, absolutely one of the best moves in the position, one of the most logical.
But that's not what we're looking for. I'm kind of thinking that if you make something like queen b2, I'm going to take on f4, and after that I'm going to take on e5, collect the rook and a few pawns and so on and so forth. I'm just thinking loud. That doesn't work, really.
So we have, by the way, the correct answer from a couple of people in the chat, Benros and Testosterone.
G5?
G5, yes. For or not for the boys, I'm not so sure, but G5 is the move.
Yeah, that's actually the same motive that I was looking for, because the bottom line there is that it undermines the d4 pawn, and no, that makes sense. It's a very hard move to see, because we're so trained not to push the pawns in front of our king, and this is a beautiful structure and the whole nine yards. But yeah, G5 is a great move.
But here's the thing, right? So there's a couple of reasons. I think you're 100% right. Like, we're trained to keep the structure like this. What are we going to do? We're going to undouble their pawn and ruin our structure, and we're going to weaken our light squares when he has a light square bishop. I mean, it's so difficult to untrain yourself to see this kind of move. But on the other hand, like, when we're solving a position, what do we say? We look for checks. There are none here. We look for captures. The capture on a4 turns out to not be the strongest move. Then we look for threats, and within threats, what's one category we always try and look for?
The pawn challenges.
The pawn challenges, right? Or the pawn breaks.
So
here, there are two pawn breaks in the position. A5, you could play, but it turns out that, he could just take our pawn here, and overall it's good for him. Crack open the queen side. So we reject a5, and then we see this is the pawn break in the position.
Okay.
But after g5, I'm just going to go ahead and take the pawn. So what would you do here?
Okay. Obvious solution is to take with a check.
Yeah.
But the obvious question is there a better move?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like you're sort of psychologically profiling me, and you feel that there is a better move. You suspect it, that I'm trying to set you up.
My late mother gave lessons in Serbian literature way back when, and she always said that her worst students were those who tried to deduce the answer based on the face, or what shows on her face. So I find myself doing the same. All right, so we actually have this check on g5 to do the good old checks capture sequence. That's actually check with a capture and attack on the king.
Yeah.
But if we're going to say A, we might as well say B, and I think the move we are looking for here is E5.
You're good, Nicola. You're good. You did not let me catch you out with the check here. But I really like the story actually about your mom's observation about that. Actually,
absolutely.
I think it's really cool. Um, Sometimes I feel as a teacher that part of the onus should be on maybe the onus should be on the teacher to get better at not sort of giving it away, not giving the clues away psychologically. I think it would be easy to just automatically recapture here or to only look at that move when you're considering g5. But you're 100% right that after that, we look at, well, that's the only check and capture. There are no more checks, no more captures. Then we look at threats and this big point. Within threats, we try and identify pawn breaks. That's where two pawns make contact. So here we saw a pawn break.
Yeah.
And now we see the second pawn break.
Yeah.
And it turns out this is actually a really annoying move for white to face. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, it's... I mean, the whole point of this whole sequence was to basically open up this h8a1 diagonal. All of a sudden, the pawn on d4 is in a little bit troubled. There is a queen on c3 and rook on a1. So it's actually considerable amount of trouble for white here.
Oh, what if I just go rook d1 here, and when you take my pawn, I just take you back? What's the problem with that?
Well, the problem with that is that I can actually then give a check on g5, take on d4, and your bishop on e2 is pickled.
No, yeah, so what I'm saying after takes here, I just take back immediately.
I'll just take the bishop.
Right. Exactly, right? So sorry for the obvious question.
Okay.
But the reason for it, the reason I wanted to sort of show it and show it sort of for the viewers is that here we've got a really unusual move, g5, unusual looking at first sight. But when you think about the rules, like don't damage your pawn structure, don't weaken your king, don't weaken your light squares if your opponent is the only one with the light square bishop. But on the other hand, if you peer deeper into this position, you realize, first of all, when we're looking for candidate moves, we should look at the pawn break. We should make that a habit. And second of all, we see that there might be some tactical possibilities in this position because that's an undefended hanging pawn.
Yeah.
Do you have any undefended piece?
Yeah, the famous bishop on e2.
Bishop on e2, which is being x-rayed. And the queen is also undefended, which is being x-rayed alongside the rook. So we see that actually, and on top of that, the king here is weak along the g5. So we see that this position is actually ripe for a tactical strike.
Yeah.
And g5 is a very nice idea. Pawn takes, then e5. Breaking here, white cannot take, because if he takes this way, then you can take back with either the bishop, or even stronger, you can take back with the rook, because there's a really nasty threat here, and there's nothing to be done. I mean, white could sort of try to escape with something like this, but the pieces just flood in, and black can just move the rook, maybe take the pawn, and just at the very least pick up this rook here on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Basically to improve, you need to decondition yourself from playing for an immediate capture with a check to look for a better move, and looking at pawn breaks is a big part of it. Really,
it's a huge part of it.
It's a huge part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's another thing actually we haven't spoken about maybe quite so much, but I'm speaking more and more to my students these days about it, which is one thing I've noticed is most of the time the play is going to revolve around your opponent, you or your opponent's most advanced post, most advanced point. So in this case, the most advanced points are here.
Yeah.
So that's where the play is likely to revolve. So that might be knight takes a4, or that might be g5. Those are the two moves that you can sort of, or e5, the three moves that you can just make contact.
Yeah.
Maybe you could also add knight d5 actually to hit multiple points. All right, so I made this mistake, and then the game took us into these waters. And well, I don't want to sort of comment too much on this position. This is just me trying to get back into the game. I achieved something here with this exchange, but it's still very difficult to win. Now I want to, this, by the way, really smart move from my opponent. And here there's actually a mistake in the move order, that it's like white didn't in the game have this option to take this pawn, because otherwise he would have done so. So ignore what I'm showing. And I just want to take you to the next interesting position. Okay, so queen d1. Now I went g4. Queen here, rook c5. And I don't have too much time left, Nicola, today.
Okay.
So we might make this the final sort of puzzle of the session. And I'll come for next sessions.
Okay.
I'll come maybe with more than just one puzzle. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Okay, so this is...
So rook takes, basically I have another 10 to 15 minutes.
No, that's fine. No, that's perfectly fine. I mean...
So here's my question. So in this position after rook c5, I took, and now white took my queen. And my question to you is, what is the strongest move here?
Okay. All right, so we have a check that's not meaningful. We have two ways to capture the queen. You know, natural move would be to take with an f pawn, but that's gonna leave us with a weak pawn on d5. So what I would, you know, if we get the check, then, you know, he's gonna take, and then so we have the rook check to put whether it's beneficial for us to get that rook on c1, which actually it may be, because then we can play a5 with some sort of a tempo. Okay, all right, so this is the sequence I would play here. Okay, the sequence is, we do not want to give, do we want to give white the passed pawn? Probably not. Okay, yeah, so we're going to give a check on c1. And after rook c1, we're actually going to capture on with an f pawn. And then you need to play rook c5, and then you can play rook c5, but we're going to do push and baby over there. The problem is that endgame is tricky because... Do you have time to take on d5? So let me count. So basically, rook c1 takes on c1, take on f e4, rook c5, a5, takes on d5, a4, rook c5, a3, and you have a time to get your rook on a1, and you have a protected passed pawn. And I'm gonna get my queen here. All right, so that doesn't look like, I mean, I do have a distant passed pawn, so I should be winning this. But the pawn push might be too premature. Okay. Yeah, white king can go on g2. So what's the other option? The other option is to do the same thing, but take with a d pawn with the understanding that we're going to get the king to d5. And that actually might be better sequence. And then we can push f4 and play against this pawn. This is tougher than it looks. Jesus. Okay. Thank you, Alex. Alex is enjoying this. All right. Or is it better to just take and then play against the c5 pawn, which is kind of exposed? Because if we do that, then any pawn endgame is better for us. Okay, I think I actually like the white pawn on c5. Do I like the pawn on c5? Takes. And the problem is he's going to push on c6, c7. My king cannot get in time. All right, so the other sequence is I take on e4, takes on c5, king f8, and I'm going to catch the pawn. So I can keep defending this rook. The problem is I cannot capture on c7 if rook is on c1 without damaging this. Okay, so that doesn't work either. All right. Jesus. And if I do this, then the pawn, okay. Yeah, no, on Lifshitz it looks fine, but that's actually probably the best sequence. That's the first sequence we looked at. All right. So let's give so the idea here is to give a check on c1, and after we take, we take with an f pawn, and then we push forward with an a pawn. The question here is that the king g2. We don't have time to defend the pawn on f4, on g4, so we need to take it the other way around. Okay, all right, so let's do this, Alex. Okay, so rook c1 is check. You're going to take. I'm going to take with a d pawn.
Okay.
And then I presume you're going to play something.
Maybe rook c5.
Okay, I'm going to push. I can't defend the f5 pawn, so I'm going to push a5.
Take on f5.
Okay, I'm going to keep pushing. You're going to go back, and we're going to end up with a pawn on e2. And I have.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to push h5. Hey, Sabrina, it's very good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the cheers. That's very greatly appreciated. All right. So the sequence is... so I'm basically going to play with my king on the king side. And you won't have time to take on g4. I am going to cut off your king on a3 at some point. And that appears to be, for me, the right plan.
Okay. So let's play that. So you go rook c1, yeah?
Yeah, you take.
Takes. And then you take back with the d.
Yeah, I take back with the d.
I go rook c5.
Yeah. And I push a5.
Take.
I keep pushing. I keep pushing. And the rook a1, obviously, right? Okay.
Now, I don't know. What are you going to play?
I'm going to play f5. Okay. King f7. Okay, h5. Okay, king e6. I'll take.
Which way?
I'm taking with an h pawn. Okay, and I'm going to play king f6. All right, now what?
Or, hold on. What happens if I go d5? What's your plan?
I'm going to play rook a5.
D6?
King e6.
Nice. This is a huge detail. This is actually, I'm really glad that you sort of spotted that detail so quickly. This actually, I by the way, I'm both saddened and ashamed to admit that your solution is excellent in winning, and my solution in the game was completely wrong. So I was hoping I could trick you.
Okay, I'm going to start pinching myself. I mean, okay.
No, this is really nice. Yeah, this whole sequence here, and this is the detail that escaped me in the game, that the rook can protect the base of the pawns and protect the a2 pawn.
Yeah, no,
So
that actually that motive was something I considered, but is it possible to play d5? No, it's not. Yeah, okay.
No, it's no. This is the key. This is actually the key to the solution. So that if you spotted that motif, then perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Adriana is saying that there are many ways to win this endgame. So
yeah, so it's true, but I found a way to not win it. So there are a few ways. There are more ways to win it, I think, than to not. But the key is rook c1. After this, there are a few different ways to win it. But I went f takes e4, which seems natural, but this actually creates a lot more problems because now the c pawn will cost me this pawn, and I thought I'm going to have 2 extra pawns, but the blockade on the dark squares is actually making it very challenging, and we can actually very quickly look at that in a second. But this is sort of the key first detail. To recognize rook c1 is the correct plan. That was number 1, so well done on that. And then the second thing, here there are both ways. Both ways are okay. It's hard to choose which one. In principle, like normally you would want to take this way. But I think it doesn't really make a difference because basically if white goes rook c5, a5, rook takes d5, I mean, you end up with this structure. Whereas if you start with d takes e4, rook c5, a5, you end up with this structure, right? So it's the same thing. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So rook c5, if not rook c5, the problem, of course, is that white, black has too many pawns. Like, so let's say that white goes something like king g2, a5, I don't know, king g3 or something like this, a4, king f4. Again, here, what is the key move for black?
Rook a5.
Rook a5, right? And then there's too many pawns, everything is under control. No kingside invasion, no d5, no nothing. I mean,
thank you, Novich, with 0-1 for the follow. Greatly appreciated. I'm just going to take and play king f8, and
nice.
I'm in square.
You're in the square, exactly. Root of the square here at play. So the square, for those who are not sure, is the pawn. 2 of the coordinates are where the pawn is and the queening square, and then you just draw what will make a square. And so that's a rule.
Yeah, many years ago I was told that going to a diagonal from the pawn to the last rank is kind of the way to get the square the fastest way. So
so just like that.
Yeah.
Oh, if you can draw diagonals.
Okay.
So exactly right.
Yeah.
So king f8, and Adriana is asking the question, why not, let's say in this position here, black king goes to f5. Black king goes, or to f6 maybe, or to g5. So I'm not sure if this is the position that you mean, and something like king here, and now king f4, just king g6. If so, then this would be also a way to convert.
Okay.
So we're saying in this particular line, why instead of f5 does the black king not just go to f5 itself? Yeah, again, this at this point with this pawn on a2 and the rook on a1, I think this is another way to win. So yeah, absolutely also winning plan.
Yeah,
you can go to f.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Bye. you can go to f5 as well here. I don't see any issues with it. I mean, white can put the king on h4. Maybe you want to prevent that, so just king on g5. But yeah, at this point, this pawn is too strong. So after takes, rook here, a2. I like this solution of f5 and just defend everything, and then in some variations having rook a5 where the rook protects f5 and a2. In this case, there's multiple ways to victory after this pawn, because as a couple of people in the chat said, this pawn is just too strong. But it's a nice motif in the other line. What I did on the other hand is I took here, and suddenly this pawn was really a problem. This pawn on c5. I went rook c8, white went rook a5, and I tried to make some progress, but here the position here in this position, white actually could have, in my opinion, held a draw. I don't know if there's some crazy computer-like way to win. I haven't seen it, even after studying the game with an engine. But there's one move here. Like, white took this pawn, and this is a good situation for me. But one move here that white could play that is really a pain to deal with.
Good question. Okay.
It might still be winning for black, but it's very messy.
Okay, I don't see any stalemate ideas. Right. You're welcome, Adriana. Welcome. Thanks for joining the stream. It's always good to see you here. And yeah. Okay. I don't see it, Alex. Let me think for a second. So you're saying a better move than rook a7, right?
Yeah. So white took those pawns. So one way to sort of try and figure things out is, why did white move his rook? Like, why not try to find some other move? So h3 was one option, but after pawn takes, the problem is that now white has to move back with the king. And as you move back with the king to try and grab the pawn, black can actually sort of, move forward with his king.
Yeah.
Sooner or later. So this is, and also leaving this pawn very, very strong. Additionally, black could just play, for example, a6.
Yeah.
So to save his pawn, king takes, and now king e5. So let's say you get some position like this, and you can see that black will just make gradual progress. So h3 was not attractive, and moving the king back was also no good, because black would sort of move his king forward and gradually push white back and push his pawns.
Yeah, I think the motive here is for white to play rook b5. Because then you cannot move the pawn on a7.
Yes. Why can I not play a6?
Rook b6 and you're going to lose the game.
a6, rook b6, and actually black is the one in serious trouble here.
Yeah. I mean, you can play rook e6, but then it's c6 and it's actually ugly.
I mean, yeah, okay, you're right. Like, rook e6 is, with best play from black, is a draw. But at the same time, I mean, black is winning, and suddenly after this, he's got to fight for a draw with, clever moves, because this pawn is very, very, very dangerous. So black has to sort of, go after it.
Yeah, and the f7 pawn is going to fall, and it's
yeah. So, but okay, it simply will be a draw. So rook b5 I thought was really a great chance for white, but white did not go for this. And the very last thing I'm going to have to dash, but the very last thing I wanted to sort of say to you is that I thought my plan was working out quite well. And I got this position right here. I took this pawn, and I thought, okay, life is good. I've got two pawns, and I'll just convert this. And it goes to show the importance of deeply studying rook and pawn endgames. One thing that really surprised me here is this is actually a draw.
Yeah. Yes. The f pawn is permanently blocked. The rook can move everywhere.
Yeah.
So let me see here. Yeah. So basically the threat is king f4.
Right. Yeah, that's what white played, king f4, and it's a table-based draw, as we call it. Maybe we can pick that up the next time if you want.
Yeah, I'll take this as a homework.
Yeah, try and figure out why this is a draw. And by the way, this was on move 50. And on move 52, my opponent resigned.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. A win is a win. We'll take it.
It goes to show.
We'll take it.
Sorry, no. So what I'm not, this isn't some kind of humble brag here or anything. What I meant to say was that this is very important to study, to know. We both didn't know it, basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
Words,
I went into it thinking it was winning.
You didn't know how to draw it. Yeah.
We both thought it was winning. And so two moves later, he resigned. And I thought, okay, I've played a lovely game. And it was only when I